Howdy, howdy, my fellow gamers, and welcome back to another episode of Storytime with Freak. Yes, I am back from vacation, and that is the last trip that I will be taking until I move in August, so hopefully I can continue to provide you guys with a constant stream of updated videos, story times, gaming quality, so no more week-long breaks. As you can see, I got burned. I don't tan well. But without further ado, let us dive straight into Thunderhead by Neil Shusterman. We are on Chapter 33, High School with Murder. I am fascinated by the concept of ritual. Those things that human beings do that serve no practical purpose and yet deliver great comfort and continuity. The Scythedom might berate the Tonists for their practices, but their own rituals are no different. The Scythedom's traditions are steeped in pomp and great ceremony. Take, for instance, the installation of a new Grand Slayer. There are 7 of them on the World Scythe Council, one representing each continent, and once appointed, they are appointed for life. The only way out is to self-glean, but they don't just self-glean. Their entire staff of underscythes must voluntarily self-glean with them. If any of the underscythes refuse, the Grandmaster must remain alive and retain his or her position. Not surprisingly, it's very rare for a Grand Slayer to gain consensus enough among his or her underlings to self-glean. All it takes is one defiant individual to prevent it. The affair takes months of preparation, and all in absolute secrecy. The new Grand Slayer must be present because, according to tradition, the diamond amulet must be removed from the dead Grand Slayer and placed around the new one's shoulders while still warm. I have never seen the ritual, of course, but stories abound. The Thunderhead. Chapter 33. What were you thinking? Scythe Curie accosted Constantine in the rotunda as soon as they left for lunch, and although he was a tall man, he seemed to shrink beneath the wrath of the Grand Dame of Death. I was thinking about that we know the reason you were both attacked? What are you talking about? But Anastasia caught on before Marie even did. Someone knew. Yes, said Constantine. The choosing of a Grand Slayer is supposed to be secret, but someone knew that Xenocrates would be leaving an opening for High Blade. Whoever it was wanted to take you out of the running, Marie, and prevent your young protege from rallying junior scythes to vote for a candidate who would uphold the old ways. That took a bit of the wind out of Scythe Curie's sails. She had a moment to let it sink in. Do you think it's Nitch? No, I don't believe so, said Constantine. He might be New Order, but he's not the type. Most New Order scythes bend the laws just shy of breaking them, and Scythe Nitch is no different. Then who? Scythe Constantine had no answer. But by nominating you first, it gives us an advantage. It allows us to see how the others react, and maybe give themselves away. And if Constantine hadn't nominated you, said Scythe Mandela, coming up beside him, I would have. As would I, said Scythe Twain. So you see, said Constantine with a satisfied smile, your nomination was a given. I just wanted to make sure it was strategic. But I don't want to be High Blade. I have successfully avoided it all my life. Then she singled out Scythe Mayor, who stood on the fringe of the conversation. Golda, she said, why not you? You always know precisely what to say to motivate people. He'd be a spectacular High Blade. Scythe Mayor put up her hands. Heavens no, she said. I'm good with words, but not with crowds. Just because my patron historic was a strong leader, don't mistake me for one. I'd be happy to write your speeches, but that's as far as I'll go. Scythe Curie's face, so stoic most of the time, now betrayed uncharacteristic anguish. The things I did in my past, the very things that people laud me for, the very things that should disqualify me from being High Blade. At that, Scythe Constantine laughed. Marie, if we were judged by the things we most regret, no human being would be worthy to sweep the floor. You are the most qualified, and it's time you accepted that fact. The turmoil in the conclave chamber did not damage the Scythe's appetites. If anything, they ate more voraciously. Anastasia wandered the rotunda, trying to take the temperature of the room. The New Order Scythes were buzzing with schemes and subterfuges, but so was the old guard. The day would not end until a new High Blade was chosen, because, if anything, the Scythedom had learned from the abuses of political contests in the Age of Mortality. Best to get an election over as quickly as possible, before everyone became even more bitter and disgusted than they already were. He won't have the votes, everyone was saying of Nietzsche, even though those who support him only do so because he's the best they've got. If Curie wins, said Scythe Morrison, whom Anastasia could not seem to avoid, you'll be one of her underscythes. That's a pretty powerful place to be. Well, I'm voting for her, said Scythe Yamaguchi, still glowing from the praise she received early in the day. She'll be a much better High Blade than Xenocrates. I heard that, said Xenocrates, barging into their conversation like a dirigible. Scythe Yamaguchi was mortified, but Xenocrates was jovial. Not to worry, he said. It's not me you need to impress anymore. The man was positively ecstatic to have finally been able to tell the Scythedom of his appointment. "So what do we call you now, Your Excellency?" Morrison asked, ever the stuck-up. "As a Grand Slayer, I shall now be addressed as Your Exalted Excellency," he said, seeming like a child who just came home with a perfect report card. Perhaps he had been transformed into a child after all. "Have you spoken to Scythe Constantine yet?" Anastasia asked, and that deflated him slightly. "I've been putting space between us, if you must know," he said, speaking to Anastasia as if in confidence, but loud enough for others to hear. "I'm sure he wants to discuss the latest information on your old friend Rowan Damish, but I have no interest in the discussion. He shall be the new High Blade's concern." The mention of Rowan hit her like a glancing blow, but she shook it off. "You speak to Constantine," she said. "It's important." And to make sure that he did, she waved Constantine, who came right over. "Your Excellency," Constantine said, because he was not exalted yet. "I need to know who you told about your appointment." Xenocrates was offended by the insinuation. "No one, of course. It is a secret matter when one is chosen to succeed a Grand Slayer." "Yes. But is there anyone who might have overheard?" Xenocrates held his answer for a beat, and that was how they knew there was something he wasn't saying. "No. No one." Constantine said nothing, just waited for him to come clean. "Of course, the news did come during one of my dinner parties," he said. The High Blade was known for his dinner parties, always intimate, for no more than 2 or 3 scythes. It was an honor to be invited or break bread with the High Blade, and part of his diplomatic strategy was to always invite scythes who despised one another, with the hope of creating friendships, or at the very least, meaningful detentes. Sometimes he was successful, others not. "Who was there?" asked Constantine. "I took the call in another room." "Yes, but who was there?" "2 scythes," Xenocrates said, "Twain and Brahms." Anastasia knew Twain pretty well. He claimed to be independent, but he almost always sided with the old guard when it came to important decisions. Brahms she knew only from the conversations with others. He was ordained in the year of the snail, Scythe Curie had once told her. Fitting, because the man seems to leave a trail of slime wherever he goes. But she also said that Brahms was harmless, a lackluster, lazy scythe who did his job and little more. Could such a man be the mastermind of the plot against them? Before lunch ended, Anastasia approached Scythe Brahms as he perused the dessert table, to see if she could figure out where his allegiances lay. "I don't know about you," she said, "but I've never seen to have room for dessert at conclave lunches. The trick is to eat slowly," he said. "Pace for the pudding," my mother used to say. Then, when he took a piece of pie from the buffet table, Anastasia could clearly see that his hands were shaking. "You should get that checked," she told him. "Your nanites might need adjusting." "It's just the excitement," he said. "It's not every day we choose a new High Blade." "Can Scythe Curie count on your vote?" He chuckled at that. "Well, I'm certainly not voting for Nietzsche." Then he excused himself and disappeared into the crowd of his slice of apple pie. The weapons salesmen were told that there would be no time to pitch their wares at this conclave, and were sent packing. The afternoon belonged to Scythes Nietzsche and Curie, as each would try to convince the Scythedom to cast their votes for them. "I know you don't want to do this," Anastasia said to Marie, "but you have to act like you do." Scythe Curie looked at her a bit bemused. "Are you presuming to instruct me on how to present myself to the Scythedom?" "No," said Anastasia. But then she thought about how Scythe Morrison approached the Scythedom. "Actually, yes. This whole thing seems like a high school popularity contest, and I'm much closer to that than you are." Scythe Curie gave a rueful guffaw. "You've hit the nail on the head, Anastasia. That's exactly what the Scythedom is. High school. With murder." The High Blade, as one of his last acts as such, called the afternoon session to order. The 2 nominees would each deliver an impromptu oration, followed by a debate moderated by the parliamentarian, who sat on the High Blade's right. Then, after a session of questions, the Scythedom clerk, to the High Blade's left, would tally the votes in a secret ballot. The 2 nominees would use a highly modern and technologically sophisticated method to decide who went first: the flip of a coin. Unfortunately, since physical money was no longer a common thing in the world, one of the apprentices was sent up to the Scythedom offices to find one. Then, as they waited for the coin, things took an extremely surreal turn. "Excuse me, Your Excellency," said a shaky voice, and then again a little bit firmer. "Your Excellency, excuse me." It was Scythe Brahms, and something seemed different about him, but Anastasia couldn't make out what it was. "The conclave recognizes Honorable Scythe Brahms," said Xenocrates. "But whatever you have to say, please make it quick, so we can get this over with. I have another nomination." "I'm sorry, Brahms, but you can't nominate yourself. Someone else has to do it." A few scythes laughed derisively. "It's not myself that I'm nominating, Your Excellency." He cleared his throat, and that was the moment that Anastasia realized what was different about him. He had changed his robe. It was still a peach velvet robe with light blue trim, but this one had opals embedded in it, glistening like stars. "I wish to nominate Honorable Scythe Robert Goddard for High Blade of Mid-America." Silence for a moment, then a few more chuckles, But they weren't derisive. They were nervous. "Brahms," said Zernakati slowly, "in case you've forgotten, Scythe Goddard has been dead for over a year now." And then the heavy bronze doors of the conclave chamber slowly began to open. And that is the end of chapter 33, guys. Feel free to leave a like, comment, subscribe. Let me know how you're enjoying the series. Check out the links down below. Join the Discord. Join the Circus community. Check out the Twitch if you're a gamer. And I asked you guys this today. What is your favorite horror movie of all time? I'm a big fan of horror, slashers, campy, gore, even supernatural thrillers. So, what's your favorite horror movie? I'll see you guys next time. Stay freaky.